Hello, beautiful people. Welcome, welcome in. If you are watching a replay and you are not a part of the Blogstar family, make sure that you thumbs up the live for one, and two, become a Blogstar by pressing the bell after you subscribe. Once you press that bell, make sure that you press always so that you could be notified for many things coming on the blogs and fiction platform. I'm going to wait a few seconds and then we will get started with NaNoWrimo. This is day two. And today we are going to talk about how to build your storyline. So I'm going to wait for just a few moments. While I'm waiting, go ahead and grab your pen, your paper, and that way you can take some notes. Hello, beautiful people. Hey, Nick. Hello, Monica. Hello, Love Kings. Hey, Patricia. Thank you all for coming in. Please make sure that you thumbs up the live. How are you guys doing tonight? All right, guys, this is day two. We are getting ready for NaNoWrimo. What is NaNoWrimo? It is National Writers Month. Takes place in the month of November. Hey, Trisha. Thank you for coming in. And we had talked about NaNoWrimo last night, and I had given you information on what NaNoWrimo was. I had also went over some other things with you to get you started. If you're watching this replay or if you are in the chat tonight and you are interested in writing your first book, or if you are a writer and you're interested in celebrating the month of November, National Writers Month, please check out the live that I had yesterday. It is posted on my channel. Nick says, I'm doing good. Just finished dinner. It was really good. Happy you liked it, Nick. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. How to build your storyline. Nick, I did tell you that you will be the first question that I answered today or tonight. And that was actually something that I was going to cover today. So you hit the nail on the head with that question. How to build your storyline. Okay. So, for one, do not lose touch with your story, meaning you don't want to walk away from it for too long. Jot down all of your ideas while your creative juices are flowing. Um, I understand that we're covering NaNoWrimo for the month of November. However, if you decide to continue writing, try to complete a book every season. So sometimes what people will do is they will put their book down for a long time. And believe it or not, you can tell the difference. You can tell where you have fillers. Just like almost listening to someone's album and they have the hottest songs, and then it's like maybe four hot songs on the track on the album, and then you turn around and you're like, oh, you lost me with that song. I don't like this song too much. And really, they only have a few hot songs on that whole, CD or whatever, or album. That's because sometimes people they walk away to the point where for so long to the point where they lose touch of that creativity when you are really hey positive. Thank you for coming in. When you are really in tune and your creative juices are flowing, even if it means jot down little notes to yourself. If you're like, I don't have the time to write a whole chapter, I don't have the time to even write, half of a page. Just write little notes that lets you know how into your your story you were, because I've heard some people walk away for a long time and they come back and you can almost tell it in their story. When you're reading it, you're like, what happened? This was so juicy. Chapter one, two, three, and four was juicy. And now I'm in chapter five and it just seems boring. Hurry up and get over chapter five. Maybe it's just this chapter. Then you get to chapter six and you're like, no, it wasn't just chapter five. Okay, let's try chapter seven. And then you'll lose your reader by that time. So you don't want to do that. If you don't have the time to do it, just make sure that, like I said, you do your web and you write down all of that information while your creative juices are flowing. Write down all that juicy stuff in those webs for each chapter or around those webs for each chapter. Write little side notes under the, circle and the web. You guys know how to do a web. Under each web, write side notes like, "Ooh, and this is where I want this to happen. And this is going to happen right here. And this is how she met this guy. And this is how this happened." Make sure that you put that in there. That way you don't lose touch of your book, because you don't want to do that. Outside of NaNoWrimo, you want to try to complete a book every season. I said that just a second ago. You want to, because that keeps the book fresh in your mind. It keeps you thinking throughout those months. And, your book will be very, oh my goodness, so interesting, because you have kept yourself on task and you kept that same, mind frame, the same feelings about your book, the energy you're giving into your book. You just keep that going. So try every season. Don't walk away from it for 6 months and then next year I'll work on it. And let me tell you, I have some unfinished books in my Microsoft Word. And like I said, Microsoft Word is very important. Kindle takes Microsoft Word up uploads from Microsoft Word, and with the iBookstore PDF file. And I have gone through just to clear up some of my stuff that I didn't need anymore. And I'm like, "Ugh, what made me start writing this?" And then I thought back of when I started writing it, and I'm like, oh man, that would have been a good story. But now I don't even want to do it now, because I lost my energy and towards that book, my love for that story. I'm like, no, not anymore. But really, at the end of the day, that would have been a very, very, very good book. So you don't want to lose interest in your book, and you don't want to throw a good book away. So try to keep working on your book while you have that great energy and love for your book and those creative juices are flowing. Nick says, there are albums I listen to like that. I remember purchasing an album in high school, and out of 18 songs, I only like 3 songs. That is so true. That's really true, because I've heard albums like that too. You already know that I'm great, Trisha said. Yes. Okay, Trisha, I got you. I got you. I was stuck on it for a second, but I got you. All right. If there is any questions, please feel free to ask, and I will answer your questions as we, go along. Develop your protagonist. What is a protagonist? That is your main character or characters. Without a main without a good main character or characters, it will not be a good story. So make sure that you develop your main character, or if it's several people. Also, something please do, is once you introduce your characters in the story, once you begin writing them, describe your character once they appear in your book the first time. Don't wait until chapter 3 to say that she had, curly hair, or that, her eyes were hazel, or don't do that, because what happens is your reader starts to come up, and we'll talk about this in later on, like in this live, but your reader will start to imagine, they'll start to imagine themselves what your character looks like. Or they're like, what do they look like? So as soon as you bring your character in, you want to describe them to a T. To a T. We talked about description last night. Description is very important. Make sure that your main character is very, very interesting. You don't want it to be a boring character, because if this whole book is going to be, if the whole book is going to revolve around this person, like, you want the person to be juicy in some kind of way. Even if it's a depressed character, honestly, sad to say, even if the character ends up dying at the end of your book, you still want to make that character interesting. Okay. We will talk about some key things a little bit later, because I'm not going to cover it tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm covering something else, but we will talk about symbolism and things that happen in books that kind of let you know that something else is going to happen. I don't know if you guys ever read Mice and Men. That is one of my favorite books. And there is a character in that book, and he had a mental disability. And there was tons of symbolism in that book. And it made the book so interesting, so fun to read. And even though it was sad, it had the sad parts to it. Remained like intrigued and reeled in because of the way the author made the characters. And that is very important. So you want to make sure your characters stand out, regardless of what they're going through. You want to make sure that they stand out in your book. Nick says, when introducing a character, it is good to have a backstory on the character, and how much is too much when describing the backstory, so I don't stare away from the main story. Okay, so what I was saying about backstories, Nick, and your question yesterday, I talked about prologues. If you want to share a backstory of your character, and say, for example, your character is a war hero, and you want to talk about what your character actually went through in that war, we're just going to use this for example. Your prologue would probably be a battle scene of maybe the character losing, some of his closest friends in war, watching some of his friends pass, having to fight the battle and stay in the front line. You would want to give that information, how they overcame. And then, oh, wow, they end up in Oklahoma in 1973. and then you go to your story. Prologues are not important, like I said, unless you do want to share backstory. So if you want to tell some important things about your character that you don't really want to put in the book, you just want to kind of give a little bit of history about your character, that's where you would provide a prologue. And you want to also create suspense and drama. We all know what that is. This will keep your readers intrigued, turning pages on the edge of their seat throughout the story because you don't want them to put your book down. Also, something that is really cool is my very first book that I wrote was a series of short stories in one book. And that was, even though it was hard at first because I had to learn copyright, I had to learn different things as far as just the whole list of getting your book out there and your whole to-do list. It was new to me. Now I could do it with my eyes closed. That was the easiest book I wrote because you have a new story every chapter. And this is great for devotionals. This is great if you want to do poetry. This is great if you want to just do a series of short stories in your book. Because, and it's so interesting. Every story is interesting because you're introducing new characters, you're describing new characters. They have different personalities than your other characters. And it's a whole different situation, a whole different plot, and it's a lot easier to write. Sometimes people, when they are writing novels, they get to a point where they're like, oh, they become stumped and they get writer's block sometimes. And we'll talk about what to do when you get writer's block on another day. But they get writer's block sometimes, and they're like, "Oh my gosh." But when you have something where it's a fresh story or it's a fresh inspirational message or a poem, you could just start from scratch and just build your character or do whatever you need to do in that chapter, and it's interesting all the way through. Not saying that books aren't interesting all the way through, but it keeps you going because you just kind of you flow through it because you are able to have something new every chapter. And I don't know why that is so easy, but for me, my very first book was like that, and that was the easiest thing aside from um getting all of my stuff together with publishing and copyrights. The easiest thing was writing a book. So, and I had so much fun writing it too. I have fun writing my other books too, but I had so much fun writing that book. Another thing, and if you guys have any questions again, I will answer them as we go on. Another thing is to show, don't tell. We spoke about description last night. Description is so important. And I'm just going to, say that one more time. It is very, very, very important. You do not want to show, you want to tell in your writing. No matter what type of book you're writing, you want to tell. Um, I'm sorry. You want to show, you don't want to tell. Okay. So, taste, smell, sound, touch, very important. Be very descriptive. Don't say she walked to the store. Instead, explain how hot or cold it was, the day was. What type of walk did the character have? Is she pigeon-toed a little bit? Does she sashay when she walks? Is there a sound while she's stepping? If it's snow, is she crushing snow under her feet? Or did she almost slip on ice? Or is it a hot day and she's in some periwinkled 6-inch stilettos and she's just clacking along or stumping or knocking on the concrete? That's very important. You don't want to tell your reader, oh, she just walked to the store. You want to show them. And that's very important in description. So that helps with building your storyline also. And that's very important because you want your reader to feel like they are there. And then you want to have a good dialogue. Okay. Make sure your characters aren't the same. They should have a different voice, a different way of speaking. Some of them should, all of your characters should have different personalities. And they all shouldn't sound like the same person. They all should have different things. One thing I love about Maya Angelou and some other authors, but I'm just going to talk about Maya Angelou right now because I love her. Is, for example, if you ever read, I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings, she wrote the way they were talking. And some of it was like, what? But if you actually said it while you were reading it, you would sound like some of it sounds slang, some of it sound broken English, and that's what she wanted you to get out of that character. And so when you are writing about you're writing from different characters' aspect, and you're writing in that character's voice. You want to make sure all of your characters do not sound the same. So if I have a character who is Valley Girl, she's gonna be like, "Oh my god, like I totally did this yesterday, and yes, we went shopping, and he was like so blah blah blah." And then if I have a character that's like, "Girl, I don't know what you talking about, girl. You better go somewhere." Like you want to make sure that you pull those characters' personalities, their voices, their tones out in your book, because even though they're reading, people, they imagine what is going on in the story. Okay. I'm going to open it up for some questions, and we will not be too much longer. So I'll open it up for some questions, and I will wait for a few seconds. All right, no questions. So we'll go ahead and continue. Important thing: edit, 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 edit. I can't say it anymore. Edit is a very, very important. And what I do is, after I complete a chapter, I'll take a break once I complete my chapter. So I can complete a chapter in one day. Sometimes it'll take people 2 days. Don't, hey, you'll get there. We'll get there together. But when I complete my chapter, I take a break for an hour or two, and I come back and I edit that same chapter. You do not want to write your whole book and then try to go through and do your own editing, because what will happen is your eyes will become tired. I get eye dizziness sometimes from looking at the computer for too long. So your eyes will get tired, and you'll start skimming through stuff and looking over stuff quickly, and you might miss some mistakes. So, or even some things that you want to change. Oh, no, 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 no. I didn't want her to say this. I wanted her to say that. You may miss some of those details. So the best thing to do is edit as you go. So once you complete a chapter, the easiest way is to edit that chapter as soon as you're done. Once you're done with it, take a break, come back, read your chapter, and edit it. All right. So, guys, again, I'm going to open this up for any questions that you may have. And while I'm doing that, I am going to go over what we will talk about tomorrow night. So, tomorrow night, it will be, what if I cannot do 50,000 words? One thing that I want to explain about NaNoWrimo is, listen, that's just the goal. That's the goal. The traditional goal is to write 50,000 words. If you cannot write 50,000 and you say, hey, maybe I can write 30,000, guess what? There is room for you. There is a special place for you somewhere. And it is also on Amazon Kindle. And I'm going to explain that to you tomorrow. We will also talk about proofreading, copyright, editing tomorrow as well. So it looks like I'm just going to wait a few seconds because I know sometimes things are on delay. And I'm actually going to open myself up in another on delay tab. That way I can see if there's anyone saying anything before I close out. Okay. So it looks like no one has any questions. Great, great, great. That's awesome. Guys, I hope that you guys did the thing yesterday where the assignment yesterday where you would write down your characters and the place that, the place that your story, or wherever your story takes place, whatever city, state, galaxy. Like I said, some people want to do sci-fi fiction. So wherever your story took place, jot that down and start thinking about how to make your characters or make your story interesting. How can you make it interesting? How can you reel people in? And another thing is, reality is so important. Your readers, you know, they really grasp onto when you are writing like a fiction, for example. If it's not sci-fi, they know that they know that they're reading something that is does not exist. Okay. But if you're writing a fiction book or inspirational or poetry, make sure that there is reality in there, something that everybody can relate to, or a lot of people can relate to, because readers really appreciate and enjoy that. So, guys, I'm going to go ahead and end it here. Again, tomorrow we will be covering, um, what if I can't do 50,000 words? Also, proofreading, copyright, and editing. I love you guys. I'm so happy that you spent time with me tonight, and I appreciate you for giving me your time. If you are watching a replay, please tell me what you think down in the comments. Any questions you have, please place them in the comment section. Any book ideas that you have, please do not put them in the comment section. And make sure you thumbs up the live and subscribe to be a blog star. You guys have a great evening. Love you all. Bye.